Okay, and I'm back. Kind of a week late, but doesn't matter. I was out of town. The final episode of I guess no longer a mini series of the Disney Plus series Loki aired last Wednesday, and I have a few thoughts about it and what it means for the future of the MCU. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
Okay, so to kind of clarify this and get this out of the way, for those of you who don't know, my kid brother Eric is currently in the hospital. At least the last time I checked, which was a little bit ago, he's in the hospital. He's mostly fine. Again, based on the last time I checked, he's fine. He had an issue in Vegas. It was an infection, got in his blood. It was scary there for a minute, but he appears to be fine. So for those of you who've been asking, that's kind of what happened. And I'll be talking about more about the Vegas trip probably maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I'm considering watching Space Jam. I really don't want to, but just to do like a quick review and maybe just rip it to shreds. But who knows? It might be good. It might be good. Anyway, so that's what's going on with him. I'll talk about that later. But before I get into it, let me just give you a quick reminder that any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario SDW on Instagram and at Super Dario World. If you followed my Instagram, Dario SDW, you probably saw most of my ridiculous adventures on Las Vegas via my Instagram story. So I tend to do that a lot when I'm on trips and stuff. So if you want to check that out, I recommend it. I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable. Anyway, live streaming on YouTube and on Twitch at Super Dario World if you want to join me. Still aiming to kind of 2 p.m.-ish, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so let's get into this because I think a lot happened in this episode that's relevant for the future. And so let's start. So again, final episode of the first season of the Loki TV show. And I'm saying first season because according to the end of this episode, there will be a Loki season 2. Okay, that's not what I'd heard originally, but it's always a nice surprise, I guess. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's just go to the full review here. Let me just give me a sec. All right, so the episode begins exactly where we leave off our heroes, and that's where they did put Greta Thunberg in there. Anyway, so it starts exactly, them going through the threshold, going past the end of time. So I'm going to call this the timeless zone. So they're going into the timeless zone. Honestly, I just have no other way to call it, so that's what I'm going to call it. And it starts with a whole bunch of, clips from the past and historical characters and characters from the MCU and blah, blah, blah. And they end up in this big kind of castle-like place, which honestly, the set design here is fantastic. I love the design for this castle. And mainly because there's a particular art form that it's Japanese. And basically when a ceramic breaks or something, they put it back together with gold, and supposedly now it has become more beautiful for having been broken. And I that's kind of how this looks like, except instead of being ceramic, it's like marble, it's like stones and stuff. So it could just be that they chose to make it look this way because it looks really cool, but it could also be symbolic of like the broken timelines and stuff like that, and how they've been fixing it and stuff. I don't know, but I personally like the aesthetic of it. They did a really good job there. Also, this show has looked very beautiful. Like it's very aesthetically pleasing. There's a mixture of the warm and cold colors here that they've handled really well. So far that continues to be good. And the episode starts with them trying to push themselves through the front door. And, they meet up with the clock lady. I forget her name, but the clock lady basically is like, hey, I'll give you an opportunity. The master will give you an opportunity of maybe, all your dreams coming true and both of you being able to exist at the same time. And they're like, go fuck yourself, clock lady, which is fair, And so that, honestly, it's a very long drawn out conversation where she's trying to tempt them and they refuse. So they continue on through this castle. And this is a very slow episode, by the way. Like, a lot of things kind of happen, but it's slow in general. And so in the meantime, the judge is trying to get information about the beginning of time, and the clock lady is like, no, this information is going to be more useful to you. And so Sylvie and Loki continue to explore. They find a statue that's been broken. Now, why this statue has been broken in particular, I don't really know. But they end up meeting He Who Remains. And He Who Remains is kind of a weird character. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about him at all. it's a I'm torn. I'm very much torn about about this character. Now, the actor in the end, I think did a good job, but I don't like that they made him so goofy and cartoony. It's like this is supposed to be kind of like a serious situation, but they threw a wild card in there. Again, I'm torn because a part of me likes it and a part of me is like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, what is this? Why do they have to keep making clowns out of everybody? Again, somebody mentioned in the chat before, it's like, why is this only for little kids? Like, why do they keep trying to make this kind of like for little kids? It's really annoying because I'm a grown-ass man and I can like this stuff too, but I would prefer it to be a little bit more grown up. But anyway, especially, a TV show about a villain, when he's meeting the villain, maybe the greatest villain that they've set up so far. Who knows? But anyway, let's continue. And there's a very, long, drawn-out conversation where it's like, hey, you're just a human dude, but for some reason they can't kill him. He's basically uses the time device, I forget the name, to kind of like get out of the way. And again, very long conversation. Very, 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 very long conversation. In the meantime, Mobius goes back to the TVA and he speaks with the judge, basically trying to convince her, like, hey, how about if we don't keep pushing this lie and we go deal with the bad guy, whoever's been lying to us and manipulating us. And the judge's like, no, somebody created this for a reason and we need to keep it going, whatever. So in the meantime, it's been discovered. Well, they keep discovering more variants, which kind of proves that she was not that they, well that they're not that they were well that it proves that they are variants, not that they exist outside of time or whatever. Okay, that storyline really didn't go anywhere this episode, and it kind of left it open. But whatever. Point is, let's go back to the conversation. And basically, the way that it's explained here by the time the he beyond time is let's see. Well, he tries to explain that he knows everything, and that's why they're not gonna be able to kill him. And he basically, all right, okay. Let me see where. I don't want to show you something that doesn't go on par with what he's saying. Every step he took to get here. Oh, basically saying that he planned absolutely everything that led to them there. So every single step of this show and every single thing of the step of the MCU has been planned by this guy, which, I mean, it could be BS because otherwise why would you want to prune them? But then again, I guess he could be planning on pruning. It could have been staged just so that they would want to kill him and so they would find him. I don't know. Basically, the point is saying that he's God and that he planned everything, and well, not God, but that he has that kind of power that he planned out their entire lives that led to this particular moment. And so it's how can I explain this without completely ruining it? Well, I'll just keep going at the same pace, because again, this is a long episode, a long episode of them just talking, and so I'm just gonna skip it. I'm just gonna. I don't remember what part of the conversation, what happened when, but basically back to Mobius and the judge. They get a disagreement. They're like, "You betrayed me. You were my friend." It's like, "You betrayed me. You were my friend." And so Mobius gets his ass kicked, and the judge decides, you know what, I'm leaving. And so she steps through a time portal, and that's where we leave their story. Well, her story particularly. She goes through a time portal. Who knows what happens to her? Back to here. The He Who Remains gives them an option. Basically, he wants them to become the new gods. The new thems who remain. He wants to retire, and he's offering them the opportunity. So he gives them two options. One, they can kill him, or two, they can take over his spot. And then he explains basically how everything came to be. And so apparently he is a scientist from the 31st century, and he discovered parallel dimensions. And while he was discovering parallel dimensions, or there's a version of him, and that version discovered parallel dimensions, and he discovered the multiverse. And so at the same time that he discovered that, There's other versions of him in other universes that discovered that there's a multiverse and traveling through different universes. And so they got together and they're like, hey, this is great. And then some of them, it turns out that they're assholes. And so they started trying to conquer everything. And they started to, wars and stuff between each other. And so eventually this guy discovered the Alioth, the entity that's capable of basically destroying matter and energy. And he harnessed that energy or that power into basically destroying everything else and creating the TVA and blah blah blah. So that's and creating the sacred timeline. So basically he destroyed all the other universes, or it's not. Here's where things get kind of tricky, and by kind of tricky I mean really fucking messed up and really annoying. It's not exactly clear how this works scientifically, and he's supposed to be a scientist, but okay. If you're capable of controlling time, all right, so I guess I need to explain time. Time is not really a thing according to science. It's not really a thing. We just perceive time as 1 second per second, but technically it's not a thing. It's not a thing that exists in nature. I know it's a fuck up because humans perceive time that way. But anyway, if you become a we're three-dimensional beings, but if you become a fourth dimensional being or a fifth dimensional being, then you should be able to manipulate time itself. You imagine fourth dimensional beings being able to see through time, kind of like you're watching a movie. You go back, go back, forward, and if you're a fifth dimensional being, you can actually go in and edit stuff. That's the dumbest down, most simplified version of explaining that I can. It's not, obviously people who know this stuff are probably ripping your heads out, but that's the dumbest down version of it. Anyway, so this dude is clearly a fifth dimensional being, but he's a regular dude in a way, but he's a scientist, whatever. And so we're gonna base this all on science. Anyway, he created the sacred timeline, which again, time doesn't really exist, and it's not exactly clear if they say that the end of time hasn't been written, then is he writing it? How does he have the power to see all these things? The only reasonable explanation, again, is that he's a fifth dimensional being. Like so he may just look like a normal dude, but he has power beyond reason. Or yeah. So yes, because again, he can go in and actually edit time. I know. Also, for some reason, he said he's immortal because he can reincarnate. It's very messy. They don't really explain it, but the point is, he wanted to stop a multiverse war, and the way to stop a multiverse war is to destroy all the other multiverses or separate this particular multiverse. It's not exact, honestly. To me, if you make a weapon out of a creature who can destroy matter and energy, you destroyed all the other multiverses, right? That's effectively what happened. But anyway, the interesting thing here is that basically he's saying, so two things could happen. One, you create kind of like a very authoritarian piece, very, very controlled piece, or you have freedom, the freedom and chaos. And so since he wanted to stop a multiverse war, well, that's what he decided to create the TVA and just become like really strict on everybody and no more other timelines. We're only sticking with one and that's it. So he gives him the option. Well, I want to retire, and you can pick. You can leave me. You can let me live, and you can continue my life's work, or you can kill me, and basically deal with cause another multiverse war, which will eventually lead to me being reincarnated and coming back to take power. So nothing would actually change. So it wouldn't actually be in any form of change whatsoever. And that's kind of an interesting topic there, because, okay, so let's say you're making the sacred timeline and you're controlling everything that happens, and you are not allowing alternate universes. You're not allowing any change in the timeline. You're not allowing a multiverse. But the reason why you got your powers is because you discovered the multiverse. Then aren't you in effect kind of destroying yourself? So technically you shouldn't be there. Except that you're already there. Maybe it's a paradox. The point is, this dude's a fucking paradox. And I'm not going to try to logic my way into it, because so far I've been trying to I've been trying to understand things in this show, and it just gives me headaches. And I don't think they actually care about things actually making sense. So from fuck it, I don't give a shit anymore. I've tried. Doesn't make any sense. No matter the way they keep breaking their own rules, they keep not giving a fuck. So fine, whatever. I don't give a fuck either. So it's that's basically the offer that's been given to Loki and Sylvie. What you gonna do? Loki and Sylvie are not exactly on par with the plan here, because it's like, well, two choices. One, destroying multiverses and enslaving variants. Two, chaos and potential multiversal war with the worst versions of this dude. So not great choices that they've been given, but Sylvie's like, you know what, fuck you, I still want to kill you. And the Loki is like, no, we need to think about this. And so it becomes like a fight between the two of them, like a fight of, can we trust this guy, can we not trust this guy, do you trust me, you only want this, you want to become the king of time, blah blah. By the way, how this dude ended up picking Loki and Sylvie to be the shepherds of time makes no fucking sense to me. You know who I would not pick? The gods of mischief. But whatever, it's, I guess, for reasons they were selected, whatever. Anyway, so they keep fighting, and it's a discussion that leads to an actual fight, and then that leads to a moment where Loki's like, please trust me. They have a moment, they kiss, and Sylvie then sends him off to a different sends him back to the TVA. And that's kind of where Loki ends up in this story. Sylvie turns around and kills the dude. So I guess I'll finish the episode and then we'll go into the specifics of it. So Sylvie kills him, and from that point on, you see the timeline start to spread into several multiverses, and chaos ensues, assuming so. And the TVA is like, what the fuck are we gonna do? Loki, again at the TVA, goes and finds Mobius, and Mobius, for some reason, does not recognize him, or neither does I believe it's Agent 40 or whatever. They don't recognize him. They think he's an analyst. They've never really seen him before. And Loki ends up looking at this big, giant statue where it used to be a statue of a timekeeper. Now he's looking at the statue of He Who Remains. Now, okay, so that's where everybody's left off. We left Sylvie and the castle at the end of time where she killed He Who Remains. We left Loki with Mobius, who doesn't recognize him, at the TVA, and he's looking at a statue of that dude he just killed. Well, who Sylvie just killed. And so, I guess kind of spoiler. Like, I've tried to keep the rules of this show. Like, we can only use the information that's been given to us on this show. So I guess this could be kind of spoiler-ish alert, but it's the only way I can actually make sense of it. And they give us a pretty hard tease here, and I mean very hard tease, of what's going to happen. So, He Who Remains mentions that he's been called by many names, and one of the names that he's been called is the Conqueror. Now, it's been mentioned several times by several people out in interviews that there will be a character who will be appearing in Ant-Man and the next Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, called Kong the Conqueror. If I have to bet, if I have to make any I have to bet paper money that the next stage of the MCU, the next saga, will be, the main antagonist will be Kong the Conqueror, and it's going to be this dude. That's why I didn't particularly hate his performance. The dude looks like he's a reasonable good actor, and when he wanted to be creepy and villainy, he could. So it could be that this is this Kong that we saw on the show, or he's not Kong, he's He Who Remains, whatever. If he is Kong, then we are seeing the kind of like goofy, kind of nice version of Kong the Conqueror, and we haven't really seen like the true villainous evil dude. Now, why did they pick a random nobody actor? I don't know. I mean, for Thanos, they picked Josh Brolin, so that he's kind of a big deal. I believe Josh Brolin has won an Academy Award. Did he win it for No Country for Old Men? I don't know. I have to look it up. But the point is, he's a big name. Josh Brolin, big name. And here they picked the random nobody, which is weird. Unless they're going to change it, I don't know. It's weird. So, here's what we know. We know that Kong the Conqueror will appear in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We also know that the next Doctor Strange movie is called the Multiverse of Madness. So at the end of this show, what ended up happening at the end of this show? Well, the sacred timeline is no more, and basically the multiverse has been created. Now this is strange because other stuff has happened before where we've seen the multiverse, particularly Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange, where he goes to the dark dimension and all that stuff. We've seen that. So there was another universe there. If the quantum realm is a separate universe, then we've seen that too in the Ant-Man movies. We saw it in Endgame. We've seen time travel. So we've already seen different dimensions. The weird part is, how could that exist while the sacred timeline was supposed to be the only thing that existed? The way that they tried to justify that is, oh, all that stuff was meant to happen. What did I do? Oh, I messed up. Okay. They try to justify it saying, oh, all that stuff was meant to happen. Okay. So I guess alternate universes were meant to be created, and it was all part of the plan of He Who Remains. All right, sure, whatever. But at the end of this particular series, we saw that the one multiverse, well, the sacred timeline spread into different multiverses all throughout, beginning, middle, and end. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means, again, that time is not linear. Like, what is it? Time is not a river, as they would say in The Prince of Persia. It flows in many different directions, and so if you allow the sacred timeline to break at any point, it breaks in all points. So it's possible that when we saw different dimensions in other movies, it's after this had already happened. Does that make any? Am I making any sense? The point is, well, how can I explain it? All right, this guy's super sure that if he gets killed and the sacred timeline breaks, there will be somebody else, one of his ultras will come in and take over. And I'm like, are they gonna come in just like that? I thought the other multiverses didn't exist, but it makes sense that if you break the sacred timeline and time doesn't really exist, then it breaks everywhere. So from the beginning of time, you would already start getting different multiverses, and it would expand. It would be crazy. And like at the same time that if you break the sacred timeline at the end of time, you break it at the beginning of time, which means that all the multiverses would exist pretty much at the same time. Like they would appear almost like that. I hope I'm making sense. And that's why I kind of tried to explain that time isn't really a thing, but I think that's what they're going for. Again, headaches. My head really hurts, but I think that's the easiest way to explain it, and it's not an easy thing to explain. But anyway, so I think that's what they're doing here. What does this mean for Sylvie, and who was right, who was wrong? So if I got a message from somebody saying like, I can't believe Sylvie did that, and such a bitch, and I'm like, I haven't seen the episode yet, but thank you, whatever. And what would you do? Would you prefer like controlled, like hyper controlled order, or the freedom of chaos? Honestly, I would have probably done the exact same thing Sylvie did, because what if they was lying? What if the dude was lying? Honestly, what if he's just bluffing? I don't know. I mean, he looks like just a dude. He might be a fifth dimensional being, but he looks like just a dude, and he could just be bluffing his way here. And what if he's wrong? I mean, first off, he could be lying. Second off, he could be wrong. You don't just because you know what's happening, just to know you know what's going to happen always. There's such a thing as free will, and you can bet on it. Also, there's also the possibility that that if the way he said it, well, I'll just go back to the way he said it. He says that doesn't matter if you kill me, I'll eventually reincarnate and I'll end up back here. So nothing will change. So to me, the only thing that actually makes kind of sense is to take a risk, right? Yeah, you go out, you take a risk, and you see what happens. Afterwards, if you fuck up, then he's going to have to clean it up and find somebody else. So basically, you're just giving up the opportunity to be the god of time, which, I mean, would you want Didn't seem like that dude was having much fun at all. I don't know. It's it's an interesting conundrum. We'll need to see the consequences of this whole thing, but overall, the important thing, what did this show give us? Other than it fucked up Endgame, and I mean a lot. It also kind of messed up the whole thing from the multiverse, but I guess they're setting up a villain, and it's a fifth dimensional being, and he's supposed to be terrifying, and they at least made that point come across that the whoever's coming up next is going to be a big deal. And they gave us a few interesting characters to play with. We don't know when the next season of Loki will be coming up. We don't know if it's going to be coming out before Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We don't know if it's going to be coming out before the next Doctor Strange. But it's setting things up in an interesting way. It's confusing as hell. It's confusing as all hell because nothing from this show made sense. Nothing. Logically speaking, or based on science, or even the rules of their own world, didn't make any sense whatsoever. But left us in an interesting spot. Could have been better. Honestly, this didn't really feel like Loki's TV show. It felt more like Sylvie's TV show, which okay. At the start, it did feel like Loki's. At the end, he was kind of just like there. Like the one who did most of the stuff was Sylvie. So the one who took most of the actions was Sylvie. So they need to fix that, otherwise, or give her own show. I don't know, but we'll see. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today. I'm gonna leave it at that. But as always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario the Show, Dario SDW on Instagram, and at Super Dario World. Streaming on YouTube and on Twitch at Super Dario World. Like I said, I'll be talking about Vegas maybe tomorrow. If not, if I might watch Space Jam. I'm not sure. I'm tired. I'm not sure if I need that or want that in my life. But reminders: this will be my last week doing the show presents Super Dario World. So if you want to continue listening to me, which I would appreciate, you need to switch over to Super Dario World podcast. The way that you can difference those is the logo. So if you go on iTunes or if you go on the iHeart app and you type in the show presents Super Dario World, that's not going to exist. Friday, I'll do my goodbye for that. I'll do my goodbye for the show, but that'll be the last episode I load there. From that point on, the future, the things that'll continue happening, the updates on all my other shows, every single other thing that I'm going to be doing will happen only on Super Dario World. The way that you recognize that, it's got a logo, the background's blue, and the logo says SDW, and it's got my little Nile monitor there. It's a green Nile monitor on a blue background. Duh. So there you go. That's it for today. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next time.